Okay, now we're rolling. Leica M6 8-month review. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Drew Waddell, and today I'm going to be talking about my Leica M6 and giving it an 8-month review. There's a certain mystique around Leica cameras. After all, a black Leica uses alien optical camouflage to make you 100% invisible when used on the street. With this, you'll be able to avoid all confrontations and keep yourself from being mentally scarred when someone asks why you took their photo. Of course, I'm just kidding, but Leica cameras do have a long history of being used for street photography and reportage, so maybe some of that does have to do with the subtle minimalist design and relatively quiet cloth shutter. It's good that the shutter is quiet because it only goes to 1/1000th of a second, and that is king of the hill in Leica filmland. There is none faster. The 1/1000th shutter is non-negotiable, and you must love it. I've owned my M6 for about 8 months. I bought it in Barcelona, Spain before my last semester started. I actually bought my first lens for the camera before I bought it. I knew I was planning on buying a Leica, so after browsing internet forums for good deals on Leica lenses, I found a 35mm 1.4 Zeiss for a good price and bought that. 2 weeks later, I picked up the M6. Now let me just say this, I highly recommend you do not buy a large fast aperture lens as your first lens for Leica M. They are way too cumbersome to be a daily driver for most people. Much better to pick up a high quality sharp prime with a more constrained aperture, a Leica Summicron or one of the several smaller Zeiss and Voigtlander lenses, such as this one, and then pick up a speedy lens later. Otherwise you will only have the one oversized lens for walk around shooting. I later picked up a 28mm Zeiss, which has been my most used lens since then. I also copped my first Leica lens, a 50mm Summicron dual range, which is also fantastic. Now, why am I talking so much about lenses in a video that is supposed to be about a camera body? Well, the truth is that lenses are the most important part of a camera body, especially for film cameras such as this. In terms of image quality, it is the only thing that differentiates this camera from other film camera systems such as Nikon, Minolta, and Canon. Now, obviously, the user experience is also extremely important. Leica M6 focuses using a rangefinder, which basically means that there is no mirror and you are not looking through the lens, like in a DSLR, like a Nikon F3. This means that while using certain lenses, your perspective may be blocked, such as this one. It's way too long and it covers maybe 20 to 30% of the rangefinder box that you use to frame. Most people who want extremely accurate framing would not consider a rangefinder in the first place. There's also the issue of parallax. Basically, if the rangefinder frame does not adjust when you move closer or further from your subject, then the difference in perspective between the lens and rangefinder view will lead to inaccurate framing. The good news is most lenses correct for this. I don't think this one does, but the 28mm and the 50mm do correct for it. Is it perfect? No. Does anyone actually care? Not really. As I said, if you're really concerned with framing, then you're going to go shoot on like Sony or Nikon or something. The bigger issue with the rangefinder focusing system on the M6 is the rangefinder flare, which basically means that if light enters the rangefinder window at a certain angle, the entire window will turn white in the viewfinder, rendering it impossible to focus with. In my experience, this mostly manifests itself while shooting vertical, portrait-style photos. While this is an objective flaw with the camera, it is only especially bothersome when trying to attain critical focus with shallow depth of field lenses. I will say that eventually most Leica shooters learn their lenses well enough to focus based off of muscle memory. Nevertheless, it is still an objective flaw with the camera, which is more or less corrected on newer Leica M's, such as the Leica MP or Leica M10, etc. The camera feels amazing in hand, and personally it is my favorite camera to hold. It's weighty but not excessively heavy, and nothing on it feels cheap. There's no sticky rubber grip to wear away at. Also, you do not hold a Leica in the same way that you hold most new DSLR style mirrorless cameras with large grips. You don't really grip it so much as you let it lie in your hand, which it does perfectly because of its perfectly curved sides. You can rest your finger on the film advance lever as well to increase the sense of grip. One thing I will say is that the M6 and a majority of cameras like it are basically unusable without a strap. which you should have anyways. A good strap is necessary so that you can wrap it around your arm and further secure it in your right hand between your fingers. Mechanically, the camera is a work of art. Leica is a luxury brand, and you can tell when you cock the shutter and advance the film. There is no perceptible wobble on the rewind, the shutter button is stiff, and it is very clear when you are metering. The shutter button requires a substantial amount of pressure to activate, which is important because there is no shutter lock on this camera. The frame counter is beautiful and easily legible. The mechanical rewind is stiff, but a little bit janky. That being said, I've never used a mechanical rewind that wasn't at least a little bit janky though, just because of the size of what you are rewinding, but I guess it could be better. The back of the camera is simple, just the selector for film sensitivity, which is simple enough to adjust. Just apply a little pressure to the circular bit and rotate your finger. Removing batteries can be a little bit awkward, but it's a rare occasion. When shooting regularly, I get more than a month at least. Mounting lenses is also easy. Align the red dots and twist clockwise. Loading film into the Leica M6 is tremendously easy. It can be done while walking with a little bit of practice. First, click the rewind switch and rewind the film back into the canister. After rewinding, remove the base plate and used film canister. Get out your new film canister and slide it about halfway into the camera. The top right corner of the film is where the indentation should always be. Carefully pull the film to the right, over the teeth and into the spool. Pull out enough film so that you can start to wrap it into the spool and then push the film all the way in. Sometimes it helps to fire off a shot to better align the spool for film take-up. After this, align the holes in the film with the pickup teeth and fire off a shot and crank just to make sure that it is being picked up. After this, you can close the camera and shoot 2 more shots to make sure that you are on 0. Now when the time comes to take a photo, it will be on sensitive film. You can also make sure that your film is inserted properly by checking to see if the rewind knob spins when you crank the camera. If it does, then you're all good. Last but not least, the center-weighted light meter also functions perfectly well, and is the Leica M6's defining feature compared to the nearly identical but much cheaper Leica M4. An arrow pointing to the right means underexposed, an arrow pointing to the left means overexposed. Adjust accordingly and you'll get 2 arrows pointing at each other, which means that the image is properly exposed. This light meter is fast, not taking more than about a second to properly measure a scene. It is visible in all situations unless you are running out of batteries. The Leica M6 is really just a dream to use. It is totally manual and allows you to be present with your photography. It is not the only camera that allows you to do this, of course, but it is one of the most handsome ones. That comes at a cost though. A good condition Leica M6 pre-serviced with a 3-month warranty comes in around $2,000, which is pretty rough. There are lots of other options for cheaper cameras that, while I personally haven't used, probably provide a roughly equivalent shooting experience. However, there's a pretty good chance that you're like me and just want an M6 or a Leica for the full Leica experience, and I get that. I recommend you save up, buy the camera, and get it out of your system. The good news is that resale for these cameras is stable, and you probably won't lose that much money if you decide to sell it down the line. Who knows, if the value goes up, you may even make money. You may also find that this camera is the only camera that really satisfies that photographic itch, and it is hard to go anywhere without it. And that is my review at 8 months of the Leica M6. Hey guys, I just finished editing the video you just watched on the Leica M6 8-month review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please drop a like on the like button down below and subscribe. You can also check out my other videos. I've made some cool ones on what it was like to be in Venice whenever the coronavirus outbreak started, and another cool, more artistic one about how I cut and process my film. So go check those out and have a good one.